From Detroit's University District, this is your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, May 7th, 2019. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays, pushing Detroit's conversation forward between intermittent power outages.
So let's get right into it before we lose electricity again, after a word from our sponsor.
Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Milo. Milo is a marketing agency that produces amazing experiences for audiences. They partner with their clients to drive business and create innovative content. Do cool stuff with them at milo.agency.
For years, Detroiters literally lived in the dark because the streetlights didn't work. After $185 million worth of investment, the city, for the most part, has working streetlights. But now there's a pretty big hiccup. About 1/3 of the new LED streetlights are allegedly defective. Most are on the city's west side. The lights, installed between 2014 and 2016, have a 10-year warranty, but they're burning out early, cracking and dimming. The fixtures were made by a California firm called Leotech, and now the Detroit Public Lighting Authority is suing Leotech to get replacements after officials say the firm went silent after initially acknowledging the problem. In the years before the city overhauled its streetlights, about 40% of the city's streetlights did not work.
Sven, I'm glad we have streetlights. I really am.
They help us see.
They're good things.
They're good for public safety.
There's lots of good benefits of streetlights. But I got to say, this ticker tape parade that's been thrown for like a couple years for them getting fixed, it always mystifies me, as well as the years we Detroiters tolerated this situation. I file all of this under working streetlights, under things that we're just supposed to have.
Despite a huge push to improve bicycling infrastructure in recent years, Detroit fares poorly in an annual ranking of best U.S. cities for biking. Detroit ranks at 1.6 stars out of 5 in the best cities for bikes ranking by Places for Bikes. That's a program by the nonprofit advocacy organization PeopleForBikes. Detroit's ranking is unchanged from 2018. The Places for Bikes survey bases its city ratings on 5 different factors that are all given equal weight. It uses its own research tools, plus publicly available data from the likes of the Census Bureau's American Community Survey and bicyclist fatality data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
We wanted to dive into these numbers a little bit because they're interesting, but they're also the source of some contention, and more on that in a minute. Detroit scored lowest on a factor which measures the pace of developing new bicycling infrastructure and encouraging people to ride bikes. It's especially interesting because Detroit has added hundreds of miles of bike lanes across the city in recent years and launched the popular MoGo bike share program in 2017. That program is now expanding to the Livernois Avenue of Fashion District and several inner-ring suburbs. Detroit also earned low marks for things like bike commuting, demographic gaps, and bicycling fatalities and injuries. Boulder, Colorado ranked tops in the best cities for biking at 3.7 out of 5 stars. Interestingly, both Ferndale and Ann Arbor scored in the top 25 of cities at 3 stars apiece.
Now, we mentioned this ranking was not without its critics. Someone on Twitter alerted me to a rebuttal piece by our friend Todd Scott at the Detroit Greenways Coalition. They've probably done more than any other organization to make Detroit more bike-friendly, and they've worked closely with the city government. The Detroit Greenways Coalition says studies from all the various bike advocacy organizations rely on heavily flawed data. That data in particular hurts Detroit because most residents here commute to the suburbs for work, and they don't do it by bike. And they rely on OpenStreetMap data to get a sense of bike networks when there aren't large and active users of the technology here in Detroit and in other cities with high poverty rates and limited access to technology. Detroit Greenways argues that a better way to gauge the city's bike culture would be to weigh factors including the number of miles of bike lanes and trails, bike count data, MoGo and Slow Roll membership figures, the number of bicycle clubs in the city, and the number of bicycle shops in operation. We'll have links to the study and the Detroit Greenways Coalition rebuttal up on dailydetroit.com.
I personally love that we have a reaction piece about a bike survey.
It's so meta.
Oh yeah, hot takes on pedals for days, man. That said, two things. We really do have a lack of OpenStreetMap data around here, and open data in general with the huge digital gap in the city. This is kind of like a reflection of the fact, I think it's like we've talked about the statistic before, 40% of Detroit households don't have broadband of any kind.
Right.
So if you don't have broadband, it's really hard to contribute to these big projects.
Or a smartphone in your pocket.
And second, I dug into the City of Detroit map on the survey site. I want to point out a few things. I mean, they seem glaring to me, but maybe Sven, you can tell me if I'm crazy. Specifically, they have this BNA score, their bike network analysis. They note that a few areas are bad for bikes, red, which is a longtime Detroit bicyclist I have issue with. One, Belle Isle is all red. Like, Belle Isle is great for biking. Also, Palmer Park nearby here, Palmer Woods. I mean, there are now bike lanes by Palmer Park, but there are no bike lanes through that neighborhood there just north of 7 Mile. But if you want to cut through to Ferndale, if you want to bike in this northern part of town,
probably one of the safest residential neighborhoods to ride a bicycle in. I mean, because they've cut off access from both Woodward, or from Woodward at least. So, to discourage all the people that were cutting through to try to beat the light and speeding through there, you can't do that anymore. So what little traffic is in there is, crawling at like 10 miles an hour.
On top of that, they have their own security patrol. It actually was featured in Vice Media over the weekend, a crazy report about like their rather intense security patrol over there with Hummers and like
and the
flak
tactical,
jackets and everything.
Those guys are kind of creepy.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to dig into that more. But anyway, it is safe for biking, but that whole area that's marked as red, It kind of blows my mind. There's another thing in this list. There's like a lot of factory sites that shouldn't be counted. And I'm just going to be honest, like you're not going to be rolling through the Poletown plant on your like trusty Schwinn. You know what I mean?
I'd like to see what would happen if you tried, actually.
Don't put it past me.
Car insurance and roads are the two top pocketbook issues facing Michigan residents right now. After all, not only does Michigan have the highest car insurance rates in the nation, but our roads are among the nation's worst as well. So here's the latest update. Republicans in the Michigan Senate have pushed through a bill that would allow people to purchase different levels of personal injury protection on their car insurance. They could also drive without medical coverage if their existing health insurance plan covers injuries from auto accidents. Senate Bill 1 passed the Senate mostly along party lines, save for 2 Democrats from Detroit who voted yes. The measure would end new claims to the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. We talked about that on a recent podcast episode. Ending lifetime coverage for major injuries. The bill also does not guarantee that savings from this change would pass on to consumers. Republicans rejected amendments that would prevent non-driving factors like your credit score and education level from being included in insurance rates. The bill now goes to the Michigan House. And there's a long history of no-fault insurance reform bills dying in that chamber.
Sven, I don't have a good feeling about this. So doing research for putting this story together, the numbers from Republicans as far as cost savings, they're saying it's somewhere between 15 and 46%, depending on which plan you went with. But those numbers are not backed up by a third party like the Senate Fiscal Agency.
The bean counters of the Michigan legislature, yep.
Exactly. They're the nonpartisan number crunchers. I like to take a look at them. I think it's always important, whether you're dealing with either political party, any political party, to check on numbers and make sure those things are straight.
Interestingly, this kind of jumped out at me. The Michigan Health and Hospital Association, which, I will describe them as kind of a risk-averse agency. They don't get involved in a lot of fights in Lansing, I will say. They put out a statement today attributed to their CEO, Brian Peters, who said that Senate Bill 1 is, quote, a shocking step backwards. He says, instead of holding insurers accountable for discriminatory rate setting and lowering rates, Senate Bill 1 limits coverage and asks drivers to simply trust the insurance companies.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think everyone should take away from the most recent lesson of things like the District Detroit and other stuff. Like, we need to get this stuff in writing. And I mean, on balance, at least for my own personal opinion, I do think giving people choice around how much coverage they have is a good thing. Like, I'm not the government has to tell you what to do kind of guy. But the thing is too about this is that people don't realize that healthcare is pretty much the biggest cost in Michigan's unique no-fault system. And often it is true that we are paying twice for coverage with both our health and our auto insurance. But again, the devil is always in the details. But here's the thing. This really feels, I mean, I don't know about you, but this felt like they came right on the radar really quick.
This was fast. Like hurrying it through. It's a big
change.
It's a complicated topic too.
Whenever there's a complicated topic and a quick bill that runs through, I always get nervous.
Bad idea, yeah.
So this makes me feel like this is the insurance industry, and I'd love to hear someone rebut me on this, but it feels like the insurance industry is kind of trying to get ahead of the ball before public pressure mounts to get more substantial changes through, like eliminating non-driving factors from rates. That's actually a national push with Rashida Tlaib and things like that. And that's actually gaining a lot of ground because people are sitting there going, why should where I went to school matter in my insurance rates? Why should what kind of profession I have matter with my insurance rates? And here's the one thing I will close with that I know some people may not agree with. Lobbyists usually have more experience and context than legislators right now in Lansing because legislators are term limited. So on this issue, on many issues, lobbyists have the upper hand because they have bigger budgets, they have bigger staffs, and they have more time on the field.
They've been around longer.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I think term limits are really stupid, but that's for another show.
And now for something completely different.
All right, Mother's Day is coming up this Sunday, May 12th. We thought we'd put together a little roundup of ideas for how to spend the day with your mother or the mother of your children, if you're like me. We'll include all of this with links, details on how to make reservations, etc. on dailydetroit.com. But first up, Ackroyd's Scottish Bakery in Redford Township and Schramm's Mead have teamed up for a series of 3-course brunches on Saturday and Sunday at Schramm's storefront in downtown Ferndale. These brunches coincide with the release of Schramm's Petit Fay Cranberry Ginger Mead, which sounds interesting.
In Birmingham, the restaurant Hazel Ravines in downtown will celebrate its first Mother's Day in business with a mimosa bar. Enjoy them with fresh-pressed juices or house-made agua frescas, including watermelon, cantaloupe, and cucumber.
That sounds really good.
Oh, yeah. And for brunch, there's made-to-order omelets, a seafood station and raw bar, charcuterie, a carving station with prime rib and salmon, and house-made pastries. Oh, my gosh.
You getting hungry?
If anyone's met me, I don't turn down food. Seatings will be at 10 a.m., 12:30 p.m., or 3 p.m. for this event in Birmingham.
Here's a great opportunity to support a great cause with your brunch. Cass Community Social Services will hold a Mother's Day brunch at Cass Community United Methodist Church on Cass Avenue in Detroit with a menu prepared by restaurateur and chef Matt Prentice and Cass Catering. Tickets are just $25 for adults and $10 for kids 12 and under.
Want to go a little more unconventional? Try Mother's Day Blacklight Blackout Bingo at Deluxe Flux in Detroit. There's no charge, and doors open at 7 p.m. I will note here, this is the one, if my mom was still around, I think she'd do this one.
Lastly is the packaged food brand Kraft. They're offering a Mother's Day away. This is actually kind of cool. Take a listen.
Mother's Day is great. It's great for appreciation and love and macaroni jewelry, but it isn't so great at giving moms what they actually need, which is the gift of not being needed. This Mother's Day, Kraft is giving moms just that. So go ahead, hire a babysitter, and Kraft will cover the bill.
You can submit a receipt for babysitting for up to $100, and Kraft will cover it. Thanks to Daily Detroit's resident mom, Cheyenne Nocerini, for that find.
One other thing real quick, want to give a shout out to a neighbor. Detroit's Good Cakes and Bakes will be featured live on NBC's Today Show on Thursday, May 9th. Owner April Anderson will appear during the 8 a.m. hour to prepare lemon velvet cake with her mom, Shirley, and velvet cake of any kind.
Yeah, and that she's going to be on there with her mom. That's adorable. Well, until tomorrow, that'll do it for your Daily Detroit. Thanks really quick to Katie, who joined us as a Patreon member. You're awesome, Katie. Thanks so much. We'll get you some stickers.
And if you want to be as cool as Katie, hit up patreon.com/dailydetroit.
With that, thanks for listening to Your Daily Detroit. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.